Since stepping away from his illustrious UFC career, Matt Brown has dedicated considerable time and effort to building a successful life beyond the octagon. Best known for his relentless fighting style and a career that spanned 16 years within the UFC, Brown has transitioned into entrepreneurship, with his gym being one of his most notable ventures. His journey from fighter to businessman has given him a unique perspective on the intricacies of the sport, especially concerning one of the most hotly debated topics in mixed martial arts: fighter pay. Throughout his UFC career, Brown never headlined major pay-per-view events or claimed championship gold, yet his contributions to the sport and his longevity in the highly competitive world of MMA are undeniable. Now, at 43, Brown reflects on his experiences and the business side of the UFC with a more nuanced understanding, particularly regarding the issue of fighter compensation. His insights reveal that the conversation around fighter pay is far more complex than the simple argument that UFC fighters should be paid more. On the surface, Brown acknowledges a reality that many fighters and fans have echoed over the years. UFC fighters are underpaid relative to the substantial revenue that the organization generates. The UFC, under the leadership of Dana White, and backed by its parent company Endeavor, has grown into a global powerhouse, pulling in millions of dollars in revenue from pay-per-view sales, broadcasting rights, sponsorships, and more. Despite this financial success, fighter pay has remained a contentious issue, with many athletes arguing that they deserve a larger slice of the pie. However, Brown is quick to point out that the reasons behind the current state of fighter pay are not as straightforward as they might seem. It's hard to expect the UFC to just be completely fair about it, Brown said during a recent episode of The Fighter vs. The Writer, a podcast where he delves into various topics related to MMA and beyond. They're running a business, and they run it very *king well. They've done an amazing job building their business. I think 99% of people in their shoes would be doing very similar to what they're doing. Brown's statement underscores a fundamental truth about the nature of business, particularly in the sports industry. The UFC, like any other business, is driven by the goal of maximizing profits. This profit-driven mindset often leads to tough decisions, especially when it comes to balancing the financial interests of the organization with the compensation of its athletes. From a business perspective, the UFC's strategy has been undeniably successful. The promotion has grown exponentially since its early days, evolving from a fringe spectacle into a mainstream sporting juggernaut. Along the way, the UFC has navigated various challenges, from regulatory hurdles to the rise of competing organizations, and has emerged as the undisputed leader in the world of mixed martial arts. But as Brown alludes to, the question of whether this approach is right is subjective and depends on one's perspective. Does that make it right? That's up to each person to decide on their own, Brown added. I think it's just way more complex than people give it credit for. The complexity Brown refers to involves the multifaceted nature of fighter contracts, the UFC's revenue-sharing model, and the broader economics of the sport. Fighters, unlike traditional employees, are often considered independent contractors. This classification has significant implications for their earnings, benefits, and overall financial security. While the UFC provides fighters with platforms and opportunities to showcase their skills and build their brands, the structure of their contracts often leaves them with limited bargaining power when it comes to negotiating pay.